Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods. This is going to be a big one. We are back working on the R32 GTR. We bought this one from the auctions in Japan. It was the cheapest R32 GTR in the world. And if you've been watching this series, you would know why. But since then, and it was almost 5 years ago that I bought this car, 3 years that we've been working on it, it's now been fully painted. We've pulled everything apart, and now it is an absolute mess. But if you know anything about these cars, of course, you know that they deserve to live on. This one was scrapoo. It was going in the bin. We have decided to save it, but I cannot save it by myself. So in this massive episode, I'm bringing in a team of experts, a team of legends, a team of people that know how to talk a lot about GTRs. It's going to be absolutely freaking huge. Run the graphics, but first, a massive thank you to Castrol Edge, who have been supporting this build. I'm very excited. We're making a clean, fast GTR. This is going to be epic. Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods. As you can tell, I'm pretty excited because an R32 GTR is one of the most iconic sports cars of all time. It is a legend, but to build a legend, you need a legend. In fact, you need a few of them. And I've invited one of my favourite legends over to Super Garage today. It is Andrew Hawkins. Thank you very much for coming over.
Hello, mate.
Don't be scared, it's a bit of a mess. In case you don't know Andrew, you may have been living under an MR2. He is one of the world's leading experts on GTRs. He's the creator of GTR Challenge, GTR Festival, GTR Magazine. GTR Festival's recently gone to New Zealand and to the USA. He also comes from an aviation background. He was in the Air Force, has some kind of engineering degree, I believe, was a pilot of some kind as well. Frightening, I know, but now knows all about this. Before YouTube, it was Ignition DVD, and before that, we met at Auto Salon.
Correct.
Anyway, I saw all of this mess and went, who do I call? Here he is. What are you seeing here, mate?
A mess.
Okay.
You haven't just thrown me under a bus, you've thrown me under an Airbus A380.
Last time you were here was 3 years ago in this room. I know it's only been a week or two for you at home. It was 3 years ago.
I forgot about it. I forgot. I completely
you
forgot
did.
about it. I'm like, they're never doing this. It's done.
So, I need an engine. So
Yeah.
the engine's obviously been pulled apart today. We've got to build it. Can you just give me a quick run through of how you would approach this now? Because I need some help.
There's two ways to go about a build like this. If you said to me, I want all of it OEM, like it has to be factory parts, I'd say see you later, and because the checkbook is just not worth it.
Yeah.
But because you said to me, I want to build this in a way where it's a combination of, you know, replacement parts that are OEM as well as performance parts, upgrades, Australian parts, Japanese parts, whatever we need to do to make it a cost-effective rebuild, but still using the right stuff, that's a much better build to do. So
Yeah.
with so many things missing, so many things damaged, cut up, whatever, we're actually better off starting from a bare shell, rewire the whole car, and basically go through everything we have here and work out exactly what we still need.
What I want is a street drivable R32 that makes 260 kilowatts at the wheels. Why 260, you're asking? Because my 180SX makes 180, and this is an RB26. 26 at a 0, 260 kilowatts at the wheels. Why are you looking at me dead eyes?
This is not some Subaru junk boxer engine, mate. This is a GTR.
Dude,
Be
be careful.
Look,
Be
I love
careful, just
GCA
'cause
two
Marty's
doors.
not
That's
here
the
right
exception.
now.
I love that car, but it's an R32. Let's go 320 kilowatts on low boost.
On low boost?
On low boost.
Okay.
Or that can be the pump fuel drive around tune if you like, just to keep it nice and conservative. How does that sound?
Are we going to be able to do 10-second quarter miles?
I insist that that's where we start.
Yes. All right. So people, today it's going to be absolutely massive. We're going to start with the engine, and I'm going to introduce you to Rob because he knows about engines.
I owe you a 10-second car.
You do.
Did I hear someone talking shit about Subarus? Particularly you. You know this. You know they're awesome. You know they make heaps of power as long as you do it properly. People buy stock ones, pump boost into them, and then they blow up. They're like, why am I Subaru blow up? And then you weird Datsun owners, you like shit on them, but Datsuns are shit.
The RB engine that came in the R32 GTR is the soul.
The heart and soul together is the RB with its all-drive system.
Thank you. We have some suspicions this is not the original engine that came in the car, and we will speak about that shortly. But for now, the engine is about to be completely rebuilt. I'm going to be work experiencing kid, which I'm very excited about. Can you give us a rundown on what we have achieved so far?
Well, the first thing you have to do with any engine build is obviously send the block away to get tested. So we do a hardness test and a bore thickness test. When you do the bore thickness test, you're looking for a minimum thickness of 3 millimeters. Anything less than that, we throw the block in the bin. We also need to check that when we offset bore it, because basically you get core shift. They're not always straight. So one block might be a little bit this way, a little bit this way, you know what I mean? So you've got to make it so that after you bore, it's got the correct thickness behind the bore. So this one tested really well. The guys at PRP tested it for us. Then we sent it off to obviously the machine shop. Now this is usually where you got to wait 3 to 6 months because they're so busy.
A year,
sometimes. Yep. But J&J Precision, I've worked with Jason before. He looked after us really well and said, get it to me, I'll get it done real quick because I know that you want to get it done in for a certain deadline for a certain event. So he did the machine work on it. The first thing they did to the block is obviously clean it. It had already been tested. They had to tunnel bore it, which you make sure the crank can spin freely and you got good bearing clearance and make sure you can have all the same size bearings. After that, they've got to bore and hone the block itself. Now, they offset bore it to get the cylinder thickness correct, but a really important thing is using a torque plate when they hone it. Now what happens is when you put the head on and you put aftermarket head studs in and do them nice and tight, it actually can distort the bore out of round. Yep. So you bore it with that torque plate on so that when it's all together, they are perfectly round. So you do find sometimes that if you pull the torque plate off after you've bored it, these won't actually be perfectly round right now.
Yeah.
But when we put the head on, perfectly round. And then the last thing is they have to deck it because you need a perfectly smooth finish when you're using a crush ring style head gasket.
Okay, so that is the block. Now let's have a chat about what's going to go inside it to make it go kablamo. But let's start with this.
So we've used a stock crankshaft. These things are pretty tough. People have made over 1,000 with them, so it's not an issue. We just did the usual balancing, check over it. It's been lineaged, converted to a long nose snout on the front, and it's ready to go. This will handle more than we can do. There was no need to go stroke and all that sort of stuff. For con rods and the pistons, we've used Nitto's new Street Division rods and pistons. These are designed for guys doing what we're doing, which is sort of like an OEM plus and a bit more rebuild.
Yep.
Basically under 1,000 horsepower rods and pistons, which is a little bit more cost effective and perfect for what we're doing. So
awesome.
Rotating assembly is even still probably slightly overkill for what we need, to be honest.
Okay, and let's talk about oil pumps.
Yes.
Now you've made a whole video about this that goes for like 30 or 40 minutes, so we'll link that down below.
Yeah.
Just give us 10 seconds worth.
When you increase the amount of volume that the pump flows, that's actually when you introduce all of the real problems. So once you upgrade a pump, you have to upgrade everything in the oiling system, restrictor, sump, baffles, all sorts of stuff. There's a lot you've got to do once you do that. But this is what keeps the oil pressure around here to keep it alive when we make power and big RPM. So it's a catch-22. But those people that say that oiling's a big problem in a GTR, it's only a problem if you don't know what you're doing. But if you watch that link, you know what you're doing. Nitto head gasket, Nitto gasket kit. We switched over to all metal gaskets for the inlet and exhaust manifold. There's our girdle that also got machined. When this got machined in the tunnel boring process, this had ARP main studs torqued down when they did it. Same as the bore, it can go out around slightly. And then we've got the cylinder head.
Nice.
Yeah, J&S cylinder head reconditioners did this. They said the head was actually in great condition. These aren't new valves, it's just all cleaned up. We put new springs from Kelford in because you do get valve float with standard springs once you go past about 26, 27 pound of boost.
Yep.
We've also got a Kelford drop-in camshaft that we made an extra 60 horsepower with on a car with smaller turbos than we have. So they're a very, very good upgrade.
Tickling the soul of this beautiful machine and putting together the Lego that is the engine is Rob. Thank you very much for coming down.
No worries,
so
mate.
Rob is an engine builder. He's been working on RBs for over 20 years, also a pro drifter, and has held some world records in terms of his RB creations. How much power have you made out of one of these?
Over 2,500 horsepower.
We're talking like up near 2,000 kilowatts. Thank you so much for coming down to help us
problem.
out. How long does it take to build an engine, approximately, just so I can get my head around that?
When we get it back from the machine shop, it's a 2-day process
Okay.
for a 2.6 litre.
So 2 days, or with me helping you, 3 days. All right, can you run us through what the process is? All I know from building engines is they're constantly looking at a book, looking at numbers, and constantly measuring things, and just doing this for a couple of days straight. Can you run me through how that's going to go down?
That's the part that hurts your head about building engines. But now that the Welsh plugs are all done and the blocks degreased and all painted and looking nice, we're moving on to measuring the crank and getting the correct bearings for the con rods and the mains as well, just so we don't have to order too many sets of bearings, and then we'll move on to the rings, get all the ring gaps done.
Yep.
And then just start assembling the pistons to the rods and start dummy assembling it to make sure everything's working the way it should.
Yep.
So hopefully this time tomorrow we'll be final assembling it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for
No
coming
problem.
down. I'm ready to learn.
Let's go.
I'm ready to accept the wisdom. All right,
go.
let's do it. Engine building really is a craft in itself, and it's something that worries me when it comes to the automotive expression or lack of with electric cars. Sadly, I think eventually there will be a whole generation of people that have never learned how to hold tools or repair anything because it'll be easier and cheaper to just throw it away and replace it with a new one. Building engines really is becoming a dying art. Of course, there will still be people doing repairs on engines and people repairing EVs, but I get the feeling that we really are near the end of an era with petrol engines, and there's something about the physicality of these components that I feel lucky to be part of. Rob's been building GTR engines for a couple of decades, and luckily there's still a lot of people like him whose enthusiasm and talent will keep this craft alive for a while yet.
The theme of this car is that for every piece of good news, there's a piece of bad news, but that's what you get when you buy the world's cheapest GTR that runs.
What bad news have you got for me? Give me the bad stuff first.
Do you want a piece of good first?
No.
The good is it's straight.
It was straightened.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I hope so.
But the bad side of that is the process of straightening it means a lot of areas got left with exposed metal and now have some surface rust, which is okay. It just probably looks bad when you first look at it.
We're going to fix that up.
We're going to fix that up. That's wire wheel and some underbody, so we'll tidy some of that up. I guess the good and the bad thing with this car is as I look over it, I'm like, oh, that's a good bit, and then I go, oh, that's a bad bit. Oh, that's a good bit. Oh, that's a missing bit.
Yes.
So essentially an assessment of this car is there is just a few things missing. Some of that is from obviously how it arrived here, and some of that is just probably because 3 years of being pulled apart means, well, they're vanished.
Yeah.
So I've been putting a list together of what we need, but overall things like bearings are in good condition. A lot of the arms and stuff are actually in pretty good nick, so we don't need to replace all of them. Good news is you got Nismo rear arms in it, which for the internet is amazing points.
Okay, good.
But my plan is to pull out the diff, the shafts, everything, get everything reconditioned, because there is, like the tail shaft, for example, is looking pretty flogged out, and some things have some wear, but some other things don't. So good and bad news basically is that for every good bit, there's usually some other bit. Yeah, this has been jacked on.
No, but there's human hair on the diff.
Yeah.
And that's either female hair or long male hair, but that is human hair. And there's heaps of it all over there.
I don't know why maybe it got jacked up using someone's head. I don't know. But that sounds like a weird
a lot of
torture
hair,
technique.
dude.
Yeah.
This is some kind of like Nissan nightmare. Like, look at this. Is that from the 70s? Seriously. Like, when is that from? Look at this.
Yep, take it all.
Dude, sorry. Dudes, seriously, this looks like it's from the 60s. Like, what is going on here? That looks like it's out of a fighter jet from the 50s, and you know it because you like airplanes. Look at that. What's that doing in a car from 1989? Are you using any of this? I can't believe how much junk came out of one car, like actual junk. What is this?
What a dickhead.
No, seriously. Like, that looks old. Come on. Like, this is some old shit. You know it.
This versus that.
Oh, no, none of that shit.
Wherever you want.
No, none of that shit.
Come on.
Look at him. Bro, it's Fast and Furious. Come on, let's go.
Cars, Western Sydney,
For
we
slips.
battle. All right?
For slips. Hello? Oh, sorry. Just talking to my Subaru mates. Oh, no, it's Nissan Dirty Datsuns. Bye. Make no mistake about it. As much as you may be in love with the R32 GTR dream, the fact is that they are old and mostly made out of Datsun junk. Basically the same parts bin as a Nissan Exa. The problem is that this old Datsun junk is rare, and compound that with the extreme levels of GTR tax, and the result is that replacing even the smallest part is going to be extremely expensive, and that's assuming we can find them at all. We'll be scrounging second-hand sites like Yahoo Auctions in Japan, or if we're really lucky, find some fellow local GTR enthusiasts that have hoarded enough GTR parts over the years that they might be willing to let go.
This is Andrew Hannison from Legendary Garage.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming down. Now, he does bespoke restorations of cars, very, very high quality stuff, and GTRs are his specialty. So he's come down here to have a look at what we've got, or more importantly, what we don't have. Run me through what you're seeing or what you're not seeing here. We've laid out the car, by the way, front to back, so we can get an idea of what might be missing. All right, Andrew, over to you.
Okay, so we're missing a steering wheel, we're missing an ashtray, we're missing the carpet, door handles.
Dash probably needs to go
Dash
in the
needs
bin,
replacement.
right? Yeah. Have some front seats. There's
We've
no
got the
headlining
seats.
either? No headlining
No
back there?
headlining, no reparcel shelf. The good thing is you've got back seats, we've got these beautiful confettis.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got a bunch of front interior parts that we'll be putting together.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are missing heaps of stuff. Do you have any of that stuff or access to any of that stuff?
I've got it all.
Really?
Yeah.
We're just going to write a detailed list of everything we don't have. You check your special rabbit hole of GTR parts,
Yeah, absolutely.
add that to this, and then slowly start building it like a Lego kit with no instructions and not all the pieces.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. I will admit at this point that I have bitten off way more than I can chew with this project. This is not a add a lip and a stage one tune kind of build. It's a combination of barn find, engine rebuild, supercar restoration, and Indiana Jones part hunting from all over the world, with all of those things happening all at once. It is really important to me that this car is saved because it looked like it was truly destined to rot away in a Japanese bin. But if you've seen videos on YouTube about doing this kind of thing and you're inspired to do it yourself, try not to choose a car that has limited availability of parts available in your own country. You'd think I'd learned my lesson with the Up GTI project, where almost everything I didn't have had to come from Volkswagen in Germany, but at least it was a reasonably modern car. This is not, and I do have some concerns about how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost to get all of the pieces that I don't have. But as far as the engine is concerned, that is something that I'm feeling very confident about, because Rob is an absolute boss. And it's time for me to become the engine building apprentice. We are at a very exciting part of this build because we are about to start assembling the pistons so they can be installed in the block. Have you got some tips for me before I kick off?
Yeah, there's always tips, isn't there? I think
I'm ready.
A few tricks, yeah.
Put the tip in, let's go.
All right, so what we're going to do, like obviously the bearing clearances and all that's done, all the rings are already done and chamfered and stuff like that. First thing I want to show you, this is probably one that you've seen all over the place flying around, is circlips. Now what you do, one on each end like that, one finger on each end, sort of push that into the hole, flick it around,
No way.
done. So instead of trying to put that in with a screwdriver and losing it and bending it, because if you do bend the circlip, you have to replace it. You're not going to reuse it. So now that's done. A little bit of assembly lube in both of them.
Yep.
Doesn't need much in there, just a little bit just to keep it lubricated. And same thing for the gudgeon pin bush.
So a lot of the time and the effort actually is in measuring and putting all the notes, which is in the very special book called GTR Notes. This is kind of the fun bit, but this is hours of work, which is the result of decades of experience, right?
Yep.
The secret recipes.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. It's a recipe book at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, so now we've got that. Now with this, we always line up our oil squirter cutout, which is the relief on the piston, is on the intake side of the block. I like to line them up with the tang on the rod side. So we line that up with the tang, which is that way there. Throw this in like that. Is you don't want to have the opening on either side of that tab. That tab's there to disassemble the rod and piston when you need to strip it. I like to have the tail overhanging that there, so one, it allows you to strip it, and two, it's not going to force the wire out if it ever does start to put load on the wire or anything like that. So obviously we know everything's clearance and works. Some wires don't go straight in. You like to put a bit of force like that.
Yep.
Then you just flick it.
And even though that's in though, we still want some lateral movement, right? Because when it heats up, it's going to expand.
Grows. Yeah. So like anything, like a crankshaft, same thing with a piston on a rod. You want to have some side clearance.
Yep. Okay.
Same thing with the rod on the crankshaft. You need to have side clearance. Without that side clearance, it's going to cook the oil.
Yep.
And then obviously lead into a whole another list of issues.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. As soon as you've got issues with that stuff, that just the start of the end there.
And then the rings can go on.
Rings can go on. Like I said, they've already been gapped and chamfered and checked and stuff like that. So I know that they're going to be okay. There's probably a little bit of a myth behind, like if you line the grooves up, the thing's not going to have compression or the car's not going to run. It's all a bit of a joke.
Because they're moving around, right?
They're spinning.
Yeah.
From as soon as that car starts, they're spinning. So, yeah, it's not really that much of an issue. We do want to put those wire cutouts facing up.
Yep.
That's like to specs. So we sort of flick that one around, should have a bit of play. And then we want to use our first retainer. We want to have that sort of down there. You flick that underneath that ring.
Yep.
And then still, again, should have more play. And the final one, which is this one.
So those ones have a bit of play in them, but these ones here, if you try and separate and bend these,
Yep.
they're not going to be round anymore, right?
No.
So that's in the bin at that point?
Yeah, if you do try and distort it in any way, like to stretch it on, or sometimes it might just be dropped on the floor. I've had that where it will compress the ring a bit. It's not going to work.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's one thing that you will have to replace. Same thing like I just said with those wire locks. If you do distort it, trying to get it in, and you can see it's out around, you can't straighten that out.
Yep, okay.
And if you do, you'll end up paying for another engine. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the fancy way of getting those on while retaining their shape?
So I got showed this like 22 years ago, and I was mind blown because this was like a anxiety attack for me as a 15-year-old. So that's one finger like that, which you just sort of put the end in there.
Yep.
The end or the dot on the ring facing
Facing
up.
up,
Yep. And just literally flick it around like that. Follow the piston line, and then just flick the tail in. Make sure it's got some play.
Yeah, nice.
That's it. There's no force required there. That is the ring that you will damage if you're going to damage any of them. It's the
Yep.
second ring. This one's a little bit more forgiving as it's still like stainless top ring. Same thing, end facing up. Obviously we're going opposite just for the YouTubers that way, and then literally you can do it like.
Great.
And same thing, should have play. The gudgeon pin should always move up and down in
Yep.
between the two wire locks. That's it, that's one pot.
When was the last time you asked somebody to help you learn something? How to repair a table, cook a dish, service a bike, or change a tap? I don't know what it is or if it's something specific to Australian culture, but people just don't ask for help. They want to learn, but there's this barrier that stops them, and I can't work out what it is. But the times that I've asked someone, can you show me how to do that, have been some of the most valuable and memorable times that I've ever had in my whole life. From asking my grandfather how to use chisels, or my mates how to build a fence or do concreting. Next time you see someone doing something and you think, I'd like to learn how to do that, just ask if you can help them, and you might be surprised that most of the time they'll be stoked that someone's shown an interest, and they'll be more than happy to share some of their wisdom with you. All right, Rob, I know you've done 2 for my one, but can you check it over before it goes in my engine?
All right, we got the ends, yep, your circlips, your side clearance, and tang to the cutout. Good work, bro.
Good? Oh, thanks, mate.
Good on ya.
All right, it's time to continue putting the rest of this engine together.
Too afraid to lose, trying to hold on to something that we'll never know. And in times like these, I can't afford to fall. I'm on my knees, looking up at the wall. Need protection,
One of the biggest known reliability concerns with modified RB engines is oiling issues, which is why we're installing a Performance Nitto high volume oil pump. The last thing we want is engine damage, which is why this upgrade is critical.
along with running our engine exclusively on Castrol Edge 10W60, who are also the sponsors of this GTR series.
While the engine is continuing to be built in the background, now we can move on to one of the next big jobs, and that is suspension. We got Chris here from Shockworks.
Good to see you again.
Thank you very much for coming down. You have made me some custom coilovers, so thank you very much. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've made here and what you know about these nuggets?
My favourite type of tune, it's a hill spec tune, so this is what we really specialise in. I also own a 32.
Oh,
so
do you?
with that, I've developed this product more than most of them, just because I've driven them for so many years.
Yep.
And yeah, this should perform really well for what you're doing.
Awesome. Have you always been into Japanese cars?
Yeah, my parents were. Yeah, my mother had an S13 growing up. My father had an R34.
Oh,
that
that's
was
cool.
kind of they were my L plate cars growing up. So that's been-
My mum had a VL Commodore and my dad had an NA MX-5. I reckon both of your parents' cars would have beaten my parents' cars. All right, so we've got our custom coilovers there going in. Now, GK Tech has also sent us a whole bunch of stuff. The R32 chassis, from what I understand, really benefits from adding a level of adjustability to it.
Absolutely.
So can we just quickly run through each of these components as
For
well?
sure. So we have a lower control arm here first. We've just got lower adjustment. So one thing that if you have big wheels on your car, pulling in or pushing out camber can affect your wheel travel. By having adjustable uppers and lowers, you can maintain the right amount of camber while keeping the wheel fitment where you want
awesome.
to be.
And speaking of which, our wheels are arriving today. They're spicy. They're very spicy. All right.
We have caster arms. They're a chromoly steel, so they're lightweight while still being strong and safe. But R32s, compared to the later chassis, have a lack of caster. So by putting caster arms on them, we can bring them up to a spec closer to the later models.
Well, people reckon R33s drive better than R32s. Is that actually true?
Yeah. I feel that for sure. Yeah. Out of
But not after
out of
this.
the box. That's right.
Yeah.
And you can manipulate, and that's the whole point of doing all of this.
But an R32 looks better than an R33, doesn't it? The comments just lit up. Let's not even talk about R34s. All right.
We have a Hicus lock bar. So these come factory with Hicus. We don't need to go into the background of that, but this essentially just cancels out the Hicus, especially when we're going to be doing a lot of high-speed manoeuvring.
Yep.
This is a real benefit.
My S13 had Hicus, and I remember just thinking that is the strangest thing ever. But now some cars are now coming out with that again. It's like seems to be having a resurgence.
Absolutely, and so what they're doing now, and it's happened since the early 2000s.
Hicus, sorry, it means that your rear wheels are able to steer as well. So front one's going this way, rear one's going that way.
They have a rear rack in them, essentially. With the earlier ones, it was hydraulic. With the later ones, it was electric. But what they do with a lot of the modern cars now, like 350s and Mustangs, they have rear steer through suspension geometry. So you they tow out under compression. So rather than it being a speed sensitive, it's load sensitive.
Yeah, right. That's interesting.
And that's why with Mustangs, you need to run lots of towing, and that's why there's a bunch of montage videos of them crashing into crowds.
Oh, God. All right, what else have we got?
Camber arms. It adjusts camber. This is a factory option to doing the lock bar versus a normal adjustable arm style. These are a lot easier to adjust, and especially once you're running a larger exhaust, this allows for a greater clearance than you'd normally have with the larger aftermarket arm. Adjustable tie rods. So you can adjust the bump steer. You might start with 1 mil of toe in, but then as you compress, you have 2 mil of toe in or 0 mil of toe, depending on how you set this. This allows us to tune that. This is a camber arm, and this is a patented GK Tech design where you've got bearings on the outer. The factory upright of the R32 doesn't go in a straight arc this way. It actually moves and turns like this a little bit. So by having these bearings here, you're allowing the factory suspension to move as factory while still allowing for the adjustment there.
All right, now over here, we've obviously got some sway bars. These have been sent over by Whiteline, so thank you very much. A really common modification to do, and in many cases, along with your wheels and tyres, one of the first modifications that you can do to help make your car handle better. What's the relationship specifically with sway bars and R32s?
So what we found when tuning all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive cars is as you increase the rear spring rate to provide a better forward balance, you reduce the ride quality and you upset the ride balance. So by increasing the rear sway bar stiffness without the front, you can improve that balance without affecting your ride quality.
We have these brakes that came on the car, but they have been completely reconditioned. These were actually an upgrade that the previous owner already had on the car. So these are a set of Brembos from an R33, and we've managed to find a matching rear set also from an R33 to go on the back. So along with the wheels that are arriving today and the tyres that are over there, we have got a lot of work to do. So I suggest we start throwing it all in the car.
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming to visit.
Cheers, man.
We're starting by throwing a couple of Mighty Car Mods fender covers onto the GTR, which are available with worldwide shipping from our website. We're getting some baseline height figures by doing the good old-fashioned shoe test and double-checking the gap with 2 fingers, which is a nice place to start. Other than the benefit of the height adjustment and damping adjustment on these custom Shockworks coilovers, it was also important to me that this car would actually drive nicely. The inconvenient truth is that a lot of Japanese cars from the 90s are getting a reputation for riding rough. It could be setup, it could be thrash components, or maybe it's just because they cost so much now that it's only older people with money that can afford to buy them, and they want a more compliant ride. But as you can see, it's all looking very old and thrashed underneath the car. So this is going to be a proper functional suspension upgrade, and not just designed to be slammed in a KFC car park. The goal of this suspension setup is to offer loads of adjustability, so the car can be set up with a bias for the street, but could also just as easily be adapted and optimized for the track. And there's this perception that the harder the suspension, the better the car will handle. Less body roll is always the line that's given, but harder does not always mean faster. Ultimately, the aim is to keep the tyre on the road even under harsh road imperfections. My first turbo import was a Nissan 180SX, and it had some really hard coilovers installed that arrived from Japan. And when changing gears from first to second, the car would always lose a bit of traction, lose acceleration, and skip to the side. So I ended up swapping them out for a softer spring, which resulted in a better squat during gear changes, which meant better traction, no skipping to the side, and ultimately a faster car. So we're basically changing every single thing that we can see to do with the suspension, including the front, lower, inner, and outer ball joints once they arrive later in the day.
So a quick little update. Cams are in, timing belt's just gone on, Rob is smashing it as usual. Meanwhile, over here, the front of the car is almost done, and look how fancy it is now. Adjustable tie rods going on, all looking great. Meanwhile, over here, Martin is very busy by the looks of things, ordering parts for his Subaru. But come this way, because in very exciting news, something has just arrived. Yes, the wheels have arrived. Now, I showed something a little bit different, that it's a little bit different to the normal style that I would choose. These are some raised Volk Racing 21A spec SRs, 18 by 9.5. They're going to be fat. Super JDM-ish. I think the R34 wheels actually look really good, but this whole car is getting a makeover, and it deserves something very, very special. And special is what we have. Thank you very much to Aaron and the team at Import Monster for organising to get these for us all the way down here in Australia. Get excited, people. This is actually happening. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you really, really ready? Look at that. That is Bellissimo, made in Japan. Come over with me and I'll stick one on the car. Let's just have a little quick geezel at what's going on over here, people. That does look amazing. That looks excellent. And what are we wrapping with them? Well, I'm going to take that off just in case it... Hello, Martin. Can you hold that, Martin? Thank you very much. All right, then, over here, all the way the other end of Super Garage, is what we are wrapping them in. Look at this fatness over here. So here we have a set of Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s. You'd be hard pressed to find supercars, hypercars that don't come with these. This is a road legal but track focused tyre, and it's going to make sure that our Mad R32 gets all the grip that it needs, because this thing is going to be making a lot of power. I don't know what Martin's buying over there for his car, but yes, Nissans will defeat all Subarus. So that's a bit of an update, and it's getting exciting. I'm starting to feel the tingles of an imminent car, and by imminent, there is so much work to do. But we're getting somewhere, which is great. So thanks for joining us on this magical Japanese journey of automotive excellence.